Awesome. Well, how many of you have hit your goals already for the year? Jen, a few of you. Courtney's close. How many of you would like to ensure that you're able to do it by the end of third quarter or at least middle of fourth quarter, not wait till the last day of the year? How's that sound? Okay. So what I want to go through today is a framework, something that massively impacted for me, my workflow, but also my productivity. And if nothing more that you want to get out of this is probably the one strategy you want to write down, okay? Which is everything changes when you start waking up at 2 a.m. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I see people shaking their heads. Never mind. I'm walking out. I'm kidding. No, but what I found is how many of you have a morning routine? Raise your hand high. How many of you do not have a morning routine? Okay. Here's the reality. Every single one of you have a morning routine. It's either by default or it's by design, right? So what we want to talk about today is how do we get very intentional about what our morning looks like that allows us to actually operate at the highest level possible throughout the day. Have any of you hit that like 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. lull in the afternoon where our energy just starts to decline? Like, man, I wish I could take a nap. I wish I was like my 10-month-old and I could just like have 3 naps scheduled throughout the day, right? Have no responsibilities. The reality is that with how fast the world has moved, we have more than ever on our plate, right? To-do lists and success lists and emails to respond to and clients to support and families to show up for. And the reality is that it's the level of our energy, how long we can prolong energy throughout the day that truly matters, okay? How can we operate with our peak performance throughout an extended period of time? So today what we're going to talk about is a winning routine. And we have to start with this reality that life is a series of sprints. How many of you played any kind of sports growing up? Okay. How many of you have watched sports? Okay. So what you'll notice is that there's play-by-plays. There's, and actually I'll start with this. Many people think of life as one long journey, and it is, but more importantly, it is a long journey broken up by sprints. There's plays, quarters, halves, innings, periods, frames, deliveries, sets, ends. Pick your sport, and you'll be given your sprints. Okay. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about this in a business context, but I want you to be thinking about what sport you chose business-wise to play in and what sprints come along with that. That's what we'll be uncovering. And life is the same. Baby to infant, infant to toddler, child to teenager, teenager to adult, and adult to elder. These seasons are just a way of looking at life through the lens of sprints. You all with me so far? So our careers are no different. A long and successful career is really just a group of successful sprints strung together over time. The fun part about our professional lives is that we get to choose our career. And obviously, if you're in this room, you chose a very unique career to be in. I just kind of wish that there was a reality show out there, a real one, that showed what a day in the life is really like for real estate agents. So clients could get some perspective about the energy, effort that we have to put into this craft. But we don't naturally understand is that once we choose our career, our sprints come with it, okay? So any goal you aspire to achieve can be broken down to sprints. Sprints have 2 components, the length of your sprint and what you're trying to achieve. Now, what's the common cycle in real estate? How long does it take typically to close business? 30 to 90 days, right? 90 days is kind of the cycle when it comes to prospecting. Obviously, once you have a deal or transaction, usually 30 to 45 days. And so the question is, what are you doing in between those sprints, right? To really maximize your productivity, your production, or your output. And the other sprint component is what are you trying to achieve? What's the goal, target, or outcome? Now, here's some lengths of different sprints. You've got a day, a week, a month. 1 quarter, 1 year, 5 years, and someday. Now, when we set goals, how do people typically think about their targets? When do they usually set goals? Every year. And when do they usually forget them? Isn't it statistically proven it's about the third week of January, so about 21 days before people give up on New Year's resolutions? So the question is, and we've talked about this in the past, but how can we get this strategically changed in our lives and our businesses by changing the sprints that we are subscribed to? For example, yeah. So how can we use this to our advantage, knowing that when we set a year target or sprint, oftentimes our brain actually can't comprehend that timeline. It's too far in the future, right? So how can we use that to our advantage? For example, if I were to say, I will give $100,000, I've got it in my backpack here, to anybody who can set a listing appointment today, means they have to go to the listing appointment today, and they can take that listing, I will give you $100,000. Who's confident they would figure out a way to make that happen? Okay. What if I gave you a week to do that? Raise your hand. Who's confident they'd be able to get that done? Now, the funny thing is, you can pick your goal, right? Whatever the financial target is that you're aiming for the year. That actually is what we should be doing with our big targets. Let's say it's $1 million that you want to earn. All we have to say is, well, what does that mean I have to do today? Right? When we create this shorter timeline, most of you, when we think of perspective of urgency, urgency is having some sort of energy around a timeline or a deadline, right? So when I say I will give you $100,000 today, if you can hit that one listing appointment, the funny thing is, how many listing appointments do you have to go on per year to hit that kind of goal? Probably not even 10 with today's median mortgage or median prices, right? Purchase price. And so what we can do is strategically just say, okay, I just need to shorten the sprints that I'm living by, which I would recommend at most a quarter. You should have 90-day sprints, but then you should chunk it down to monthly sprints, weekly sprints, and what's most important, though, is your daily sprint. What do I just need to do today? Don't worry about the next 6 months. Worry about what do I have to do today that's going to set me up in the best scenario possible for the month, and then that will lead into the best scenario for the quarter, and ultimately it will add up to a year. So the length of sprints is important, and the 5 goals of real estate sales sprints are the number of leads that you're generating on a monthly basis, the number of seller agreements, number of buyer agreements, number of transactions closed, and then the amount of money earned. Those are the things that we should be tracking, right? Those are the key metrics of success. Now, the ones that are important, how many of you have read the 4 Disciplines of Execution? I've mentioned this book before. Okay. So what are the 2 different measures that it talks about in there? Cam or Amber? Lead and lag. Okay. So it talks about there's something called lead measures, and then there's lag measures. So a lag measure would be when I step on the scale, I see a certain weight. That is a result of a bunch of decisions up to that point, right? So that's a lag. It's a past indicator of previous actions I've taken. These things are all lag measures, right? Transactions closed and money earned. What we should focus on are the lead measures. Lead measures are the input. It's if I do this specific actions now, I know it's going to have positive results on the back end. Does that make sense? So this is actually the most important or vital sprints to track. How many leads am I generating? How many listings do I have signed? And how many buyer contracts do I have signed or buyer agreements? Bless you. So if we track these things, for example, if we're tracking this for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and the number keeps being 0, what's going to start happening in our mind? Is it going to tell you, hey, something's off? We might not hit our end goal of $200,000 in income if I keep writing 0 every week, right? So it starts to inform you when you're paying attention to your lead measures, what the potential outcome is going to be down the road. The biggest challenge is most people wait till when to assess if they're on track or not for their goal. End of the year, right? It's too late by that timeline. So these are the most important that we can track on a weekly basis. Anyone who intends to have an amazing career will have to embrace their sprints and learn to win them. The most important sprint is win the morning, win the day. So if you were to even chunk it down further, it's just saying that 90 minutes of my morning tees up the success for that entire day, which actually impacts the rest of the week, my month, my quarter, and so on. So what does the win the day or win the morning, win the day actually mean? Win the day is the goal, and winning the morning is how you do it. Some of you may have seen this snapshot from The One Thing. And it talks about how you breaking your big goals down to a day makes the goal real and gives you daily sprint like focus. So it's called goal setting to the now. You can just go Google this and you'll find the actual document or image that you can download, because it's really helpful, where it says, okay, someday, what's the one thing that I really want to accomplish someday in the long-term future? Like, what's the ultimate vision that my business is working towards? And from that place, you then want to define, well, what's the 5-year goal? If I'm going to end up, and this is usually, who do I want to be? This is usually saying the rocking chair method. Some of you guys have heard me go through this analogy before, but when you're 80 years old and you're looking back on your rocking chair and you're just sitting there looking back at life, and maybe you have some grandkids or family members around you, what would you actually determine to be a success of your life? Because it's probably not going to be, if you can remember your name, it's a good one. It's probably not going to be, I sold this many homes in 2025, right? You're probably not going to remember that or care about it. It's not going to be a success indicator at that stage of your life. So typically your someday goal is going to be more about, who did I impact? Who did I help? Who did I serve? Who did I become in the process? That's the someday type target. Your 5-year goal is usually some milestones. So it's saying 5 years from now, this is what I would like my lifestyle to look like. This is how much time I want to spend with family or friends. These are the activities I want to be participating in, the hobbies I want to have, and maybe even some of the achievements as far as, financial success. So how much money do I want to earn by that timeline? What kind of house do I want to live in? What kind of car do I want to drive? And then you are able to chunk that down and say, well, if that is the 5-year real or goal that I want to focus on, what would need to happen this year for me to be able to stay on track? What's the checkpoint over the next 12 months to keep me on target for that 5-year goal? And then from there, you're, again, chunking it down to monthly, weekly, daily, and then right now. What do I have to do over the next couple hours to just stay in unison with these long-term goals? So if you don't take this approach, what would be the alternative? Lose the day, lose the morning, but you still win the day, lose the morning and the day, or lose the day but make it up tomorrow, right? How many of you have had those days where like, this is a throwaway day? I had a bunch of core initiatives or tasks I was going to knock off and I didn't do any of them, right? And that's okay to happen every now and then. We're all human. But if it becomes a consistent routine, you're most likely not going to end up where you want to be down the road. One of the things that was said, and spacing his name, but he said, he has this great book, it's called 12 Pillars. And he said that 5 years from now, you'll end up in either a well-defined destination or an undefined destination, right? And it's all based on the actions that we take in this moment. So getting clear about what is the morning routine that's going to help me stay on track with where I want to go. So why does this all work? Having a solid morning routine. And what I do want to say is it's going to look different for everybody. We talked about this in our ALC meeting last week, where I don't know if I might see one. Nope, that's a McDonald's drink. Is there any swig drinks in here right now? Oh, there we go. Jen, what'd you get? Endless Summer. Okay. How many of you, your favorite drink is Endless Summer from Swig? Oh, you're alone. Sorry. I I mentioned this. I was driving. This actually happened this morning. Does anybody know the Beans and Brews that's at the bottom of the hill in Linden, right? And there's like the water or there's a swig right next door to it. Every morning I drive by that. The swig line is around the whole building, and there's nobody at Beans and Brews. And this is 7:15, 7:30. People are getting their soda fix at swig, right? That's how you know we live in Utah. Okay, that's the trick. The cool thing about Swig, though, why it's so successful is everybody has their own custom solution, right? Their favorite drink. And I want you to think of your morning routine as something very similar. You've probably seen like a ton of motivation videos where a person's like, I wake up at 2 a.m. and then I do this and then I do this. And then by 6 a.m., I've already beaten everybody because I've done everything between 2 and 6, right? Or whatever. What I want to say is that your morning routine is going to be a customized solution to you. So you just have to be in tune with what are the things I'm going to do consistently. And there's kind of two pieces that I would recommend. This is what's been helpful for me is you want to build a minimum viable morning solution. What that means is, hey, I'm in a time crunch or I woke up late or whatever the case may be. What's the minimum thing I can do that's going to get me off on the right foot? Something I can do, I said, I check the box and it adds a win right off in the morning. Okay. So even if that's like, hey, if nothing else, I'm going to do my 10 minutes of meditation. If I have to push off my reading or my studies or whatever else it might be, I'm going to do at least this one thing. Because can we, even if we wake up late, invest 10 minutes into ourselves? Yes. If not, we've got to figure something out, right? And so just get that minimum viable solution in place and then say, if it's an optimized morning routine, what does that look like? What are the processes or procedures that I know give me a lot of energy and momentum going into my day? And I'll show you what that looks like for me in a moment. So there's research behind this. It's science-backed. The 80-20 principle, which is that 80% of our results come from 20% of our activities or actions. Willpower is not actually on will call. How many of you get to 3 p.m. or 4 p.m.? You're like, I don't even know if I want to do the rest of this day, right? And so the reality is we have to have something that charges us up, that gives us energy so that we have enough momentum to keep going. Multitasking is a lie. Dividing that energy and attention. It takes a goal. Number two is it takes a goal and makes it, we have to take a goal and make it bite-sized. Okay, so how do we chunk it down? And it's about building a block system that builds on little successes. So having a time block that allows us to really block our priorities and the things that we know are going to get us closer to a success. The second piece of that is it's time on task over time. So just staying consistent. Consistency really is the way to win the race. Number three is it creates a powerful accountability system. So we have to have some cadence of accountability in our lives to really rise. And it requires to come up with actions that yield immediate results. In sports, it's called win the play. It stresses staying present and maximizing performance. So a lot of times I played football in high school, and you don't want to think about the whole 60 minutes or the whole game. You just want to think one play at a time. And then you get a reset after every play, which is nice. So your focus and your attention is all on that one play. And it should be the same with, again, our work or business, where we're not thinking about the 90-day targets at all times. We do have to glance at those. We have to be aware of them. But each day, we just need to focus on what's today. The play is today. And then number four is we have to create boundaries so you can experience a full life. Gary Keller had this, he talks about how there's seasons of life. And he calls it the education phase, which is basically until you're, 25-ish out of college. And then you go into the working phase of your life, which is about till you're 40. Does anybody know what the last phase is? When you're retired? The wheelchair phase? The play phase is what he calls it. And what he says is most people live them in these sprints or these timelines or these seasons chronologically in order. When in reality, I wish I had it written on the board, but what you do is you want to flip this on its side. And so you want to have education in your morning. You want to improve your skill set. You want to enhance. And you essentially are saying, well, I'm not going to actually wait and just do these in chunks of life, years. I'm going to do it every day. So I'm going to have education in the morning and personal growth. And then I'm going to have my work time, right? From 8 a.m. till 4 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever the timeline is. And then I'm going to have my playtime, right? And you're going to purposefully now, while you have your energy, while you have your health, schedule your vacations, schedule your family time, those things that should be a priority, right? Because if we sacrifice, I'm not going to say it perfectly, but there's this idea that oftentimes people will sacrifice for their family, right? And working and grinding and working hard, only to sacrifice the thing they're trying to sacrifice for. They'll actually sacrifice their family, right? And so what we have to do is live intentionally and say, I want to time block all the things that are important to me, which should be your vacation time, your family time first, your education time. How do you want to grow personally? And then you time block your work around that, right? And ensuring that you're operating from a place of priorities. So you get the most work done. You feel free to end the work day while there's day left. So if you do time block and you schedule your priorities in advance, you're able to walk away and say, okay, I'm done at 5 because I already knocked out and crushed the priorities that I had. And you have time for other pursuits, spiritual, personal, physical, relationship experiences. That's why it's vital. So how does this work? So this is the productive person's daily energy plan. And there's a few core areas of life that you're planning for. So 1 is meditate and pray for spiritual energy. 2 is eat right, exercise, and sleep sufficiently for physical energy. Hug, kiss, and laugh with loved ones for emotional energy. Set goals, plan, and calendar for mental energy, and time block your one thing for business energy. So those are kind of the ingredients, is how I'd call it, as far as how to build a successful morning routine. Is asking yourself, of these items, which ones do I want to ensure that I have a kind of a system for, right? How many of you actually have a morning routine written down or documented somewhere? Okay, 1, 2. Okay. Here's some hacks that I'll recommend. So I'm going to just show you a few of my personal strategies. Now, where this came from was I did door-to-door sales, as many of you know, for about 7.5 years. And we would work from Monday through Saturday. Basically, Sunday was our only day off. And they were long days. We'd start roughly 10 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go till dark. So 9:30, depending on where we were knocking. And in order to maintain enough energy to be able to make it through those longer days, we would have to have a solid morning routine. And so my morning routine really started about a decade ago, where I started to get clear about what are the things that do give me energy and how does that impact the rest of my day. What I'll say is it's been very modular. So meaning I've kind of swapped things out at different points in my life. For example, I had a kid last year and my morning routine kind of went out the window temporarily, as some of you can imagine. And so you have to be okay with just knowing that things have to shift, and that's totally fine. So it doesn't have to be very regimented where it's like, this is done every single day. And if I miss a box, everything's going to crap, right? Instead, say, this is a good strategy from Shoney Ivens. He says, you want to always add or instead of and. So instead of me saying, I have to read for 10 minutes, and I have to meditate for 10 minutes, and I have to exercise for 30 minutes, and I have to, and I have to, and I have to. If I miss any of those in that chain, what happens psychologically? I say, I've lost. I only read and I only meditated. Dang it. So instead, you want to say, or. My morning is a success if I read for 10 minutes, or if I meditate for 10 minutes, or if I XYZ. Does that make sense? So that means, again, the minimum viable solution, if I only have 10 minutes, I at least got one of those things done, and it's a win for the day. Does that make sense? So that's one helpful strategy. Let me go ahead and pull this up, and we'll go through this together. One, this is actually something I saw on a friend's phone, maybe 6-ish years ago, and this is how I've structured. This is just a screenshot of my phone screen. What I saw on his screen was he had put affirmations as the folders on his iPhone, and then put apps that were kind of tied into those specific pieces. in those folders. So every day when I'm going to, I don't know, look at, for example, I am healthy. Well, all of my health apps are in that folder. And so I'm programming my mind every single morning or every day that I'm looking at my phone with these affirmations. Do any of you do affirmations right now? Getting back at it's true. It's true. They're by default, right? So this is one way where you can design some affirmations and plug them in where you're going to see them almost. I mean, how many times do you look at your phone throughout the day? Two or 3,000, right? Yeah. So that's a little hack that's strategic where you can add whatever your affirmations are and categorize your apps there. So this is my morning routine, and I have it just built on Notion. So for me, I just have these little drop downs where one, I want to look at my vision board. So what are the things that are important to me or that I'm working towards? And these can be short-term goals or they can be long-term goals. And so you can add those on there. Who are people that I look up to that I want to emulate my life around or kind of have similar principles that I subscribe to. You can put, so for me, I have a vision board at home, but well, what if I'm traveling? Couldn't look at it, right? And this takes me maybe 10 seconds to just look through those images really quick. Just a reminder of what I'm headed towards. Affirmations. So again, just adding the things of what are the affirmations that you're going to live your life by or run by, and adding those as something that you can read through. You can, again, just even do this. I don't encourage it to everybody, but if you have a Tesla that self-drives, you can pull up your affirmations and do those while you're driving. Your current goals, my reminders, and these are just kind of simple. These ones, for me, reminders change roughly every 6 to 12 months. So these are just kind of simple principles that are guiding forces for me. And then these are just my momentum rituals. So how many of you have read the book called The Miracle Morning? Okay. So it has this Savers playbook within that book. So I just have a screenshot of it for me in here, which is basically the strategy that I utilize. So it stands for silence, meditation, prayer, breathing, any of those practices that you want to include, affirmations, encouraging words, visualizations, imagining yourself doing things in the future or being somewhere in the future, and or the things that you want to attain, exercise, reading, and then scribing, writing. I'll be honest, that's one that I'm not great at, is I used to write down my goals on a consistent basis every single day. I would write my goals down. Now I just read them instead. But if you do a journal, that's another great practice. So for me, it's just simply, these are the three things that are like my minimum viable, which is pray or meditate, read, and organize the day. Those are the three things where it's like, if nothing more, let me just glance at my calendar, organize what I have to focus on for that day, and then let me go ahead and read something either on Audible or a physical book or on Kindle. And then I have kind of the same repeat for an evening routine. I don't want to steal the punchline, but when does our morning actually start? The night before. Like that was the biggest change for me when it came to a morning routine and building consistency, is I realized that it was actually the quality of how I ended the night that had the greatest impact on how I started the next day. And so if nothing more, what I'd recommend is building a 15 to 20 minute evening routine that helps you to prepare for the next morning, okay? One example of that is I found this little strategy that if I put my exercise clothes out for the next morning, it was much higher likelihood that I was actually going to go exercise that next morning, right? And also, depending on the time that I'm one of those people that actually like staying up late. I'm like a night owl. And so I would stay up till 12:30, 1 a.m. And this, again, was a routine that I created in the door-to-door space. And I realized that that actually had a huge drainer on my morning and me being able to have enough time in the morning to actually hold a successful routine. So when I started to go to bed earlier, 10:15, 10:30, I had much more likelihood of getting up at 6, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and being able to execute my morning routine. One last piece I'll show on here is tracking what I would say is the most important piece to winning the morning. and we'll wrap up, is I know these are going to be bigger, but let me see if they won't let me resize. So let's see if they are on here. The one thing that has had the biggest impact on my morning routine is getting more sleep. So oftentimes in business, we talk about how we need to hustle, we need to grind, right? We need to outwork other people. I would rather work smarter than harder. And what I found, this was actually a recommendation from Johnny probably 4 years ago now that I've been tracking, is my Aura ring. And this just simply tracks my sleep. So I've swapped it out for my wedding ring, but literally everything health-wise, steps throughout the day, all of that is tracked with my ring. But more importantly, it will track my sleep. So for example, this was last night, and anything above 75 is really good. And this is an example where a couple months ago, or actually last month or earlier this month, May 5th, right? This was a terrible night of sleep. I only had 4 hours and 43 minutes of sleep. My wife got in for a late flight at 2 a.m. Her flight was delayed. So I didn't get to go to bed till late that night. But I notice a massive impact on how I'm able to show up mentally and operate on a day where I have terrible sleep compared to a day where I have well-rested sleep. And so for those of you who want to get a little bit more intentional on tracking your energy levels and your sleep, this is something where I've even been able to pinpoint and identify I can't have caffeine after 1 p.m. Caffeine has a shelf life or a time that it stays in your system. And so for me, anytime after 1 p.m., it's going to throw off my sleep. I also try not to eat heavy meals like steak, stuff like that, late in the evening. Those are usually going to be heavier meals for lunch instead, so that my body can properly recuperate throughout the evenings. And so just a few things where I've been able to pinpoint those based off of tracking my sleep on this app. So to wrap up, going back to this last piece, is how you end the night determines how you start the day, and how you start the day determines how you finish it. So that's some simple frameworks into improving your morning routine. And again, remember, everybody in this room has one. It's just a routine by design or default. And you've got to make that decision. Okay. Awesome. Any takeaways or ahas before we wrap up and get to lunch?
If anyone ever read the book, Lee Iacocca's autobiography, the autobiography by Lee Iacocca, he one time, everyone thinks, well, he had to have been a really busy guy, taking over Chrysler and all that. Anyway, he was saying that he was surprised at how the divorce rate for executives is very high. And the thing that he did for himself and his family is he would pencil in his daughter's, track meets and any kind of school activities. He said he would just he would put those in his organizer just as if it was a business meeting, and he gave it the same priority. And so that way he was able to kind of keep a more sense of balance to keep his family life and his work life, going.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, schedule your priorities. Your family's a priority. They should show up on your calendar. Absolutely. Awesome. One more? Amy?
Putting that all. Instead of having the stages of life be 30 to 50, put each of those stages of life into that day. Like, create time for the play and the retirement now. And you can do that if you've started your day off well. So we don't have to put off all of that till we retire. Enjoy it now too.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Awesome. We got one more. Tenna. Yeah.
So like a failure if you didn't do it all in the morning, but like anything else, if I did this, I was a success this morning,
Yep.
and that's going to cause more success throughout the day. Like just our mindset, that's the hardest thing. So I think that
Absolutely.
just doing that one thing.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you. Great. Win tomorrow morning. And then win the rest of the week. Win tonight. Yes. And it'll set up for the rest of the week. Awesome. Have a great one. We'll see you guys next Tuesday.